There we go. Hello, Linda. Linda. I do not like messing up names. I hope I said that right. I don't, because I don't like when somebody messes my name up, especially after I tell them 3 times. And they still say it the way that they want to. God help us all. I'm glad to be here today with you all. Uh, hello, hello. Oh, well, Peggy, no one is on video because we're in webinar mode. Only Phil and I are on video, so you can't see. You can only see us. Yeah. So no one has video option. Hello, Ebony. Glad to see you. You know, Phil, every now and then we can promote someone to a panelist.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if Ebony would have been here last week, she definitely would have got promoted because I said,
"Oh yes, who you be?" Yes, you did.
And I was like, "Oh, that's Ebony's word."
Oh goodness. Let's see. Hello, Megan. Someone else is here too. It won't let me scroll down. Let's see. Oh well. All right. It is 12 o'clock and we want to make sure and honor time. Mm-hmm. So let me make sure I have the topic for today pulled up and we are going to get started. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so glad that you are here. Hello, Shayla. Thanks so much for joining. I like to call out names. So every now and then I'll stop and I'll say hello because that's me. Always has been. I like to acknowledge you because that's how my mama and daddy taught me.
Sound like you have good home training because yes. I don't do a good job at that, which means that maybe my home training wasn't the best.
They taught me that, and they taught me that when you walk in people's houses, you say hello. So everybody say hello because you have entered into the KDE house virtually. Say hello. I am LaTara Venice, and I am the Director of Culture. I have to get my titles together, Phil. You know, I'll be over here trying to say soul care provider. And I am the Director of Culture for Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. And I am here with our awesome CEO, Mr. Phil Bynes. And we're going to have another expansion conversation. These have been so good. I always leave with nuggets. I always have lots of notes and things to really think on. I get stretched during these conversations, but wouldn't that make sense? Because these are expansion talks. So wouldn't that make sense? Right? I love this. Love it, love it, love it. And so today, Phil, our topic is pathways to all things common. And you have 4 points that we want to cover in this next hour. And so I'm just going to say, let's just get into it because I love number 1. I love it. So let's just get into it.
Yep. So pathways to all things in common. So this is something that this is based off of something that I shared with Team KDE about a year ago. You know, when God first started talking to me about all things in common, and it was specifically about this first topic here. Number 1 is organism, not organization, right? And so if you guys have been around Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur for any length of time since I've been CEO, you've probably heard me talk about organism versus organization. And so the first part of this that I want you guys to think about as we're approaching all things in common as an organism, right, is that we carry the same DNA, but we are not clones. We carry the same DNA, but we're not clones, right? And so it's impossible for us to begin to think about all things in common and coming together as one or as a community without having the same or similar DNA, right? You think about if I wanted to give you a kidney transplant, you know, we have to have similar DNA for that to work, or else the body's going to immediately reject it. You think about even your parents. Like if you say that you're a child of the movement, for example, and you don't sound anything like Shay Bynes, or you don't sound anything like Phil Bynes, who's called the father of the movement at the moment, then, you know, we have to question your legitimacy. right? Are you really a child, right? So it's that similar thing. So, we carry the same DNA, but we're not clones, right? I'm not a clone of my parents, I'm not a clone, and they weren't clones of of my grandparents, right? But we carry all similar DNA. They're aspects of what we carry that looks like, where we came from, our lineage. And so that's the first part of this whole organism, not organization. We will begin to kind of sound and look a little bit like each other, right? And you know what? Can we do this? Can we pull Ebony to the stage if you want to come, Ebony? Because I had a thought, and I figured I would use you as an example, but I only use you as an example if you want to show your face.
Are you free, Ebony? I won't make you a panelist unless you're free.
Yeah.
So we'll wait for you to say you're free. And she might not be free because I see her also recording to her otter.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, if she's not free, that's okay. I can use the example without getting her face in.
Okay.
But there was something that like when Ebony first began to launch, what was the conference called? That first summit you Ebony did? I can't remember, but
it is oh goodness. I have to look it up.
It wasn't Unbecoming, was it? It was
no
that flowed out of it later.
Believers in Business.
Believers in Business, right? And I remember part of the challenge that Ebony was having at that time is she's like, well, we have KDE. So when God started to speak to me about this, it was like, why? Right? Because it seemed similar. But that's a big part of this whole organism, not organization, right? God's going to call some of you guys to do something that looks like it's very similar to what we do, right? But it's not a clone. You have someone specifically or a group of people specifically that you're supposed to be talking to. And in that way, we can feel the earth all in all, right? God didn't just send one person with a message. He sent different people with different aspects of the message so that he can touch everybody that he needs to touch. And so a big part of this is we carry the same DNA, but we're not clones. And so I have a side note here. This looks like personal revelation that you carry that is authentically you, but it also reminds people of KDE, a close relative, right? So that's the first point I have. And I want to hear what you guys think about that. Is that foolishness or are we on to something here?
I think Peggy said, I'm glad to hear that. I was struggling a bit with this. I think that, you're on it. I think about, early on when I kind of began to really move in the message of soul care, specifically soul and heart and business. I remember writing my copy and I think I did faith-filled entrepreneur or something. And Shay read through it and she said, did you have a problem putting kingdom driven entrepreneur? I said, well, yeah, it's not mine. That's yours. And I was there for a while. And then here recently, when we began to when the shift happened again, God kind of was like, okay, you're getting even more narrow and you're specifically with coaches. And Shay we were talking and Shay said, yeah, hashtag kingdom driven entrepreneur. I was more comfortable with it then because I understood and I am authentically me. But what happens with messages is that the more that you hear a message, the more it becomes ingrained, right? And the more it becomes a part of you. And this is why people have to be careful what you listen to and who you listen to. Because, junk in, junk out, put good stuff in, good stuff out. And so it was even in flowing with with the circles you flow with, right? So all of my good friends, happen to be a part of Team KDE, but we're each individual. And some of us, we have kind of like where we have these other like conversations, of course, because, people develop different kind of friendships. And you have to sometimes you can find yourself saying, that sounds like something Tony would say. Isn't that something that, but it just happens. But I'm still saying it in my way, and I'm still being who I am. And the caution in that is to make sure that you're not scripting yourself just like somebody else. And I found myself doing that. That was early on in my entrepreneurial career as I'm building up my business. And these coaches would actually sell you their scripts or teach you how to script so that you can be a success like me. You can be just like me. Look at me. But that's their dream. That's their goal. That's their voice. And I had to learn that was not my voice. I'm looking here at Coach Billy said, it absolutely resonates. Each of us has a unique role to fill. CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart pharmacy are all in one place, and nobody is out of business. They're right. Everyone kind of like, I don't particularly like CVS. I will go to Walgreens over CVS, but a lot of people like CVS because of the rewards program. I don't care about the rewards program. To me, I'm like, well, I don't need all that stuff. I don't need, I'm just going to say Trident, even though it's not a toothpaste, Trident toothpaste, because I don't use that. I use Crest. So I don't go for the deal of the week. Some people do. That's why they go to CVS, right? I like going to Walmart. It just depends on which one it is. I don't have a problem with going into Walmart, but I have a preference, and everyone will have a preference. And that's why, I think it's Ebony. I think I've heard Tasha say it as well. So here we go again with this not the script, but the movement and hanging in those circles is that they always talk about there are people who are called to your voice. So I can do soul care and somebody else can be doing soul care. Here I am certifying all these soul care practitioners. And yes, they use some of the same language because it's a part of soul care, but each of them are different. And I expect them to be different. I don't give them a script to use when they talk to their audience, because their audience is called to their voice. But that brings up something else, Phil. We have to understand our voice. That's like a whole other conversation.
But see, that's so good, because like, if you're part of a family, your family has a way of talking. They have a way of being. They have a way that they speak. They have a way that they joke, right? And so it's good to have similarities, right? Sometimes we might feel like we're copying or whatever the case is, but that's not really the case. If you're truly part of the family, you'll know that, oh, this is how we kind of sound, right? But like we talked about the previous week, or no, 3 weeks ago now, your unique calling, right? You have something that's uniquely your own, even if you're part of the family, even if it sounds similar, even if it looks kind of like something someone else is doing, right? And so that's the key part. Like, we have similar DNA, but we have our own unique personal revelation. I talked about this before because, this is something that we see not just in the body of Christ, but anywhere. Like, sometimes you'll get someone else's revelation and you don't sit with it long enough until it becomes your own personal revelation. You like what they said, it had an impact on you, and then you run off with it and you start using it. But the danger with that is you don't use it appropriately, right? You haven't sat with it. You haven't juiced everything out of it. You haven't made it a part of you. Because once you make it a part of you, when it comes back out, it's going to be similar to someone else, but it will have your own unique DNA on it as well. And so it's similar to that. That's kind of what we're talking about. Like, so when we're part of this organism, there's going to be a lot of things that look similar, but we're not clones. And so if we remember we're not clones, and we remember we're asking Lord, okay, what is it that I bring to the table for this? What do you want to do through me? Then we'll make sure that everybody has their own personal revelation, and we're touching the people that God has assigned us to. Because if we don't get through to the point where we have our own personal revelation that God's given us, and we're reaching the people we're supposed to reach, then we're going to have our organism's not going to have the reach that it's supposed to have. Is going to be short something. Right. And that's important for some of the other, as we go into the other points that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But that's foundational. We have to realize that we have the same DNA, but we're not clones. God is doing something a little bit different in us.
Yeah, that's good. I like that a lot. I actually thought about PLR, for people who know what that is, that's private label rights content that you can buy. And I actually had a PLR site one time, and God was like, take that down. And I got to, I was like, what you mean take that down? That's how I make some money that way. But what I realized is that a lot of people don't go and change the content. They use it exactly as it is. And so while it's legal to do that when you sell PLR, right? What the Holy Spirit showed me is that you are teaching people how to clone the same thing. So I had to stop selling it. I did. I ain't knocking nobody else that sells PLR, but I did. I had to stop selling it because some people, yes, you have a right to change it. You have a right to do this. You also have a right to use it just like it is. And I think about some of the conversations that Shay and I have had, and just kind of watching different people with the message of kingdom entrepreneurship, but they don't know their voice or even how to pull that forward. And so I'm reading, I go, it's Shay, that's your copy. It's just changed over a little bit, right? Because they don't know what to do. So they're trying to clone a message that's not necessarily that in a way that's not about them. The message can be the same, teaching kingdom entrepreneurship, but cloning someone else's exact message, right? Because God's going to give each of us a different way to do it based on our personality and based on our, who we are and, who we be. I wish Ebony was here. Who we be. Right. And I've had people do the same thing, Coach Billy. I've had people, I'm like, they talk, that's my word. I mean, I'm like, wait a minute, but me being me, sometimes I go comment and I go, I'm so glad you got that message that I put out. That's just me being me. Don't y'all do that. I'm just letting y'all know how I do it, right? But we got to be careful. Because that can become a danger. We're not called to clone. We carry a message. All the disciples carried the message of salvation and repentance, but each of them were different.
Yeah. But that's so good, right? And quite frankly, honestly, a lot of times it's not coming from a bad place, right?
Right.
But it shows a little bit that we haven't matured in the message enough, right? It's like your children playing dress up in mommy and daddy's clothes. It don't fit yet, right? But they admire you so much. They admire mommy so much. They just want to be just like mommy. They admire daddy so much. They admire their uncle, whatever. So they put on the clothes that don't fit. And everybody can see that they're playing dress up, but it's out of admiration, it's out of respect. But what I want us to all be is mature, right? As we mature, we begin to realize, okay, that's not quite my message. It registers with my heart. I love this message, but now I need to sit with it. And when I bring it up, it'll be authentically mine. And if it's not authentically mine yet, I have to be careful to say, this comes from here. Shay Vine says this, or LaTara says this, or like I say about Ebony when I say who you be, because that's not a word that I use, but now I've been in relationship with Ebony enough that I hear it registers in my mind. So when I say it, I'm giving her credit. Oh, like Ebony says, who you be, right? Because it's something that she sat with now, and it has a meaning for her.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's similar. It's that type of stuff. We just want to make sure we're being mature, that we're thinking about what we're doing before we do it, because that's a sign of maturity.
Yes, it is. That's good. That's good. That's good. And it kind of also goes right into your second point, which is kind of where I want to go. Be intentional about receiving from and giving back to the ecosystem. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, since you wanted to go there, you got something to say? Go ahead, jump in. Or you want me to say my point?
I want you to say your point, and then I'm going to jump in.
Yes, ma'am. I'll do that. Be intentional about receiving from and giving back to the ecosystem. So there is a reason God has you in this community. Every ecosystem has everything it needs to thrive. But the biggest threat to an ecosystem is invasive species that knock off the balance. If you look like an invasive species, the members of the community will avoid receiving from you. And we need to sit on that. Because what happens sometimes is we come into community and we have something that we want to share, we want to give. But quite often, a lot of times what we bring is something that we picked up somewhere else, right? And it doesn't really match the ecosystem, right? Now, sometimes you're bringing all of who you are, and all of who you are will impact where you're coming, right? Like if there's some goodness that you picked up somewhere else, and it becomes part of you. But at the same time, there's this DNA here that's KDE that's supposed to be a mesh, then all that will work out fine, right? But a lot of times we'll bring something that was never intended to survive in this ecosystem, and it becomes evasive. And then people are like, and then you wonder why, you're not, it's like the community is not receiving you. Oh, well, I'm a mentor over here and I can bring this and I got this and I had impact there. But what you're bringing does not fit the current ecosystem. It's an invasive species, and the people aren't going to receive. They're not, especially if they fully receive what goes on in this atmosphere. If you bring something that's foreign to the atmosphere, then they're not going to receive it. And sometimes they're going to wait for someone else to be like, oh, this is good and this is why this is good, and then they can receive from it, right? So that's a great point. Be intentional about receiving from and giving back to the ecosystem. If you don't receive first and get an idea of what this environment is all about, then when you try to give, you're going to give something that we're not ready to receive.
Yeah, that's good. I can always use KDE as an example too, because we have that little smaller community igniters, even though it's a little bit bigger, it's still a smaller part or a more intimate part of KDE. And sometimes, people will come in with a message, right? Sometimes you can always tell who's kind of joined because they think they're going to be able to sell or network, right? And you can network. We just network in a different way. we network in a different way. And so Michelle or I will have to send them an inbox and go, hey, we don't exactly do that in here. We don't just kind of read through the post and kind of see how we flow, because you want to show up. And I was telling someone this the other day who has some struggles with team. And I said, well, you have to kind of quote unquote follow the leader. If there are some rules and some regulations that they expect of you, then you need to show up that way. You can't show up the way you choose to show up. That's like the receiving and the giving. You have to receive what they're giving, and then you have to give so that the ecosystem stays healthy. You have to give the right thing. So if you struggle with time, then guess what will happen? Then that affects the whole ecosystem, because God's a God of order, and things are time. We have to be timely with things. That's talking about stewardship. And so I think it took a minute to register, but then it was like, oh, okay, I get this. Same thing I tell just even with my children. There's a flow here in this house. And if we don't flow well, then what will happen is it messes with the ecosystem of our home. Our home is fun, it's loving and all of that, but we have structure around what that looks like. That's how you're able to maintain what it is that God has blessed you with, right? And I think that's important. And the ecosystem, you do need to understand what's in it, because it has all of the components to continue to thrive. And when we do bring in, this is where maturity comes in. When you bring in immature toxicity, that toxic stuff, you really can mess up the moment and the purpose of that ecosystem. And that can be hard for people who are like natural born leaders, but they don't really know how to gel in. And they don't understand that, it's not about, it's about stewarding and not showing up trying to control a moment, but being a part of the moment.
That's so good. That's so good. And just a little bit more on this ecosystem thing. Okay, so I have the perfect example because I live here in South Florida. South Florida is the type of ecosystem that a lot of tropical things can survive, right? But if you bring something from another tropical environment that is used to having predators or something like that to keep it balanced, then it runs amok here. So we have a big problem here in South Florida with iguanas, because there's no natural predator for iguanas, right? And it started off as someone's pets, but now they're running rampant in our ecosystem, right? Another thing, pythons, right? because they can survive in a rainforest environment, whatever else. Well, guess what? The pythons down here are getting so big that they're rivaling the alligators. There are alligator and python fights out in the Everglades. You know, it's crazy.
Wow.
Like a python tried to swallow an alligator, and the python burst open, but the alligator was dead too because, you know, of course, it was doing its gator roll, right? So things like that happens when, you know, when something doesn't belong in the ecosystem, it begins to, it's like it fights against what's supposed to be happening in that particular area. So that's why you have to really, really be intentional about receiving first, knowing what this ecosystem is about before you start trying to give to it. Because in that same way, you could be adding a python to, to the environment, or even, what's another thing? We have fish down here that are, they come from somewhere else. I think they're maybe like an Asian fish. They call them snakeheads. Those things are so aggressive. It's killing, not killing, but yeah, pretty much it's eating a lot of the fish here. We have a lot of docile fish in our canal system. But someone, oh, I don't want to kill this, you know, instead of, and I can't keep it anymore. So let me put it in the canal. And so what started off as something that was, you know, you were trying to do that was good, became something that throws off the balance, right? And so I think that's the end of that point. I'm not going to beat on it anymore, but I just want to, you know, bring you.
But that's good though. I think that's good. That was all good. That was really good. It's giving me some things to think about. Pythons and alligators, and I don't know. I'm gonna think about coming to visit y'all. I'm not sure.
No. They're out in the Everglades. They're in the Everglades.
I know. I mean, I already know about the iguanas. Like, things are everywhere.
we don't see them like that around here, but yeah, man. Yeah. People with their exotic pets, right? And then once the pet becomes too much for them, well, I don't want to kill it, so let me put it out here, and you put it out. You cause a whole nother problem, right?
Yeah, that's a whole trip right there. So point number 3 is when we grow, I grow.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing. A lot of times the world makes you think about things differently. We need to worry about ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves. But the truth is, when you're part of an ecosystem that is thriving and it has everything you need for success or whatever else. The truth is, as that ecosystem grows, it provides even more resources that you need. So as when we grow, I grow. Like sow into the kingdom and reap from the kingdom. The more mature we become, the more we will champion the kingdom advancement of our KDE family. Collective growth leads to individual growth. And it's so true, because as we grow, like, I don't know if you noticed, but because we have a relationship with Ebony, it's a little bit deeper. She's been around for a while. It's nothing for us to mention her name during this session, right?
Right.
And so someone's like, oh, this Ebony person, let me see what she does. Go and search it out. And we may never know that someone did that from hearing this replay or whatever. Or even that other week when LaTara mentioned Joy Cap's name, right? You mentioned her name. You said she was an awesome copywriter, and someone said, oh, I need her information.
Yes.
But see, that's the truth. There was not work that needed to be done by Ebony or by Joy, but because we're in community together and we know how each other move and we know what we bring to the table, natural growth will happen. You know, as we grow, the more people that KDE as the organization reaches, or the organism, let's just keep it organism. The more people we reach, the greater the growth of the individual, the greater the reach of the individual parts as well. You know, if we reach the White House, guess what? At any moment, if someone from Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur mentions something to someone in the White House and mentions your name, now you reach the White House.
Yeah.
Right. That's really what it is. As we grow, I grow.
Yeah.
And we have to shift our mindset, because if we're constantly looking at, well, how does this benefit me? What's the best way to do this?
Oh goodness.
Then the truth is, you won't plug in to the point where you can fully receive what the organism has to give to you, what the ecosystem has to give you.
Yeah.
You're only going to show up a certain type of way. And when you show up a certain type of way, what you don't realize is people recognize what you're kind of carrying when you show up the wrong way.
Yes.
You know, especially if they're cynical people. I'm kind of cynical sometimes. So if someone postures and position themselves and I don't know them, I'm like, what's this about?
Right.
And I have to kind of be like that, because if I'm called the father of the movement, I can't expose the children of the movement to some foolishness.
Right.
Now I'll give people the benefit of the doubt, but the first thing that pops in my mind is, what's this about? What's and then I have to be like, okay, don't be like that. Don't be like that. Not everybody's trying to come at you sometime. No, so just, but my intent is already up, right? Yeah. So you have to be careful not to posture yourself like you're trying to receive something, you know, or else you put off that vibe, and there are other people that's in community that's kind of like me, that they just see stuff, they see connections, and then you've cut off their ability to hear what you have to say or to receive from you.
Yeah.
Let alone you also cut off your ability to receive from them.
That's good.
Not going to share it as openly.
Yeah, that's good. I like that a lot. I think about team building, and I think about the Color Your Soul Company team. And one of the things that I kind of shifted, because I work with each of them individually, but God stretched me last year, because as we grow, I grow, right? And that's what I'm always telling them. I'm like, this is a we thing, you know. If you elevate, then I'm going to elevate. If I elevate, then you're going to elevate. And so I do a lot of stretching and pulling, you know, of them to show up as they should within our organization, our organism, right? So that we all grow together. And it's an environment where it's not about WIFM, what's in it for me. That's not what it is. It's always, you know, about how can we do this as a team so that God is glorified and those we serve are edified, right? That's really important, because again, that takes the thought off of you, because I always tell people, this walk and your walk is not about you. It's about God and those who are called to your field of service, whatever it may be. That's what this is about. But that takes a heart posturing and a mindset shift. And it has to be in that order: a heart posturing and then a mindset shift. And it'll help you to develop grace in this thing, because guess what? You said it, Phil. Sometimes that discernment can make you jaded if you're not careful, and cynical, right? And you're sitting there, you're just like, you know, I'm not too. And then God says, give grace. And you're like, yeah, but did you hear what they said? They just want to kind of one up in here. Give grace, right? It doesn't mean you give them that opportunity that they're necessarily looking for. It simply means you give grace and you ask God, well, what do I pray about? And how do I deal with this person, right? And yes, because discernment requires grace and mercy. And it's okay. And when you have discernment with grace and mercy, then you're able to do healthy confrontation, kingdom confrontation, right? Because all of that kind of occurs even in an ecosystem. There in an ecosystem, you said the python and the alligators are fighting, right? So you're going to have that type of conflict sometimes that comes up. How do you deal with it? What does that look like, right? And I think it's important for us to understand, when we get in that cynical phase, to sit back and go, like you said, okay, I have grace in this moment. What does this look like? Because God, you know, I'm human. I can show up just like this, but I want to show up like Jesus. What does that look? And that changes the whole environment of the ecosystem, right? And when you grow, I grow. And when we grow, I grow.
Yeah, that is so good. And also, I would take this opportunity to say, make sure you because God will put people around you that you need, that balance you out. So because I have this tendency sometimes to be like, so what's their angle, or what's this? Like, I only do that especially when I have Shavon's around, because I know she's not going to let me overdo it.
Yeah.
Right?
No, she won't.
She won't let me overdo it. So I'll do it when she's around, so that she can be privy to it. She'd be like, well, that's not what I take from that. I take this, and I think that person's just doing this and just doing that. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll take your word for it, but I got my eyes open. Right?
But isn't that balance though?
That's
You talk, and that's important. And you need that accountability as well, right? Because no man is called to be an island. That's not even biblical. It's not biblical. There's no scripture to match it. So if anybody thinks that, stop saying that, because that's just not right. You have to have that accountability. But again, that takes a heart posturing and a mind shift to be able to go, there are people that I can trust. There are people that I can do this thing with. I don't have to. One of the things I see on Facebook quite often, and I'm kind of glad I'm off Facebook for a while.
I saw your eyes twitching just then, so I know you're finna go real deep into
is when people say, how does the term go? Oh, move in secret. And I go, that's not, it's almost like I said, you can't trust anybody is where they're coming from. Trust nobody. Move in secret. But if you move in secret, how are people going to know what you need and how to pray for you? Now, I'm not saying tell everybody, their mom and their daddy. You need to make sure that you have that accountability, and I think too, people want to move in secret so they don't have to be accountable. So, that's a whole thing too. That means that you have put a hole in the ecosystem. Because you're still going to be a part of an ecosystem, no matter what. You're going to still be a part of somebody's ecosystem, period. So how are you showing up is important in that. And what are you delivering, right? What are you delivering? And then what, like you said, Phil, what are you receiving? And how are you receiving it? Are you receiving it with a side eye? Are you receiving it with prayer and with some wisdom, so that you can move forward in the way that God wants you to? Maybe you're there to fill the hole in an ecosystem. Maybe God is saying there's a hole. They hurting over there. I need for you to fill that hole. That's how soul care came about. Me working through this soul care and God showing me it was a biblical term. And he was like, yeah, my people not doing it. And I need for them to get it together and to grow up. It's time, because we have work to do, right?
And that comes from you steeping yourself in the environment, in the ecosystem, so that you can really see what's needed, right? Because sometimes people come and they're like, oh, I know what they need here.
Yes.
And then they just start doing stuff. And if they just sat back long enough, they'll realize, no, that's not what's needed. There are people here that could do that, but they're giving space for those people to grow up or mature. Yeah. Right. They're giving grace, right? They're giving. So anyways, but
yeah, that's good. This is good. This is good. We need to hit that last point. This was good. I hope this is blessing you all and that y'all taking notes, because this is really good. Like for real. Good. So Phil, the last point is take the limits off.
Yeah. And so when I say take the limits off, once you've grown in this whole ideal of, okay, you recognize that you're part of the organism and it's not about an organization. Once you become intentional about receiving and giving back, once you realize that, okay, no one's trying to take advantage of me here, but when we grow, I grow. So it behooves me to, look after the interests of other people and all the rest of that stuff, as well as know that my time's going to come as well. Then we can take the limits off. And when I say take the limits off, we understand that it is more blessed to give than to receive. We no longer care if we benefit directly from our efforts and our seed sown. So basically with that, it's like, people think about, okay, well, if I sow, I'm going to reap. But what winds up happening sometimes is people will think I sowed here, so I'm going to reap from here.
Right.
Oh, I always support. I'm just going to take it to something that I see on Facebook that drives me up the wall, is when people say, oh, my friends don't support my business, or my family don't support my business. Right. The truth is, you sow because you're supposed to do it, or you do your business, or you create your products or your services because that's what you're supposed to do. Right. And just because you support other people let's say your family members or your friends, doesn't mean that your friends and your family member needs to support you. But God will not be mocked. What you sow, you will ultimately reap.
Yes.
So the challenge is to get our minds away from thinking that, okay, if I sow here, I'm going to reap from here. No, when you sow into the kingdom, you'll reap from the kingdom. It just may not be this part of the kingdom, or it may not be that part of the kingdom, but it's going to come back because God can't be mocked, right? And so that's the understanding. So we get to the point and we mature enough that we realize, okay, I'm going to give, or I'm going to sow into something because I want to see an increase of the kingdom of God, right? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for the kingdom of God to increase. So I'm going to sow into the life of others. You know what? I know someone's looking for an accountant, and I happen to know my brother here or my sister here is an accountant. And although I don't have any type of reciprocal relationship where I'm going to get some kickback for referring this person, I mean, I want to see that they're awesome at what they do. I'm going to put them out there, right?
Yeah.
You know,
that's
so
good.
You become involved with someone's increase in their income, right? You didn't get anything back from it, and there's no guarantee something is coming back. But if you mature, then we're taking the limits off. Like, because I know that as this person increases, this is going to help the whole. Go ahead, LaTara. You look like you have something to say.
I do, because you know, I have that soul care practitioner certification, right? And so this past year, really, it was earlier. This past year, near the end of the year, people started asking me, "Do you have referrals for people who've gone through your certification?" And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, I said, "I do, but I don't, because I don't really know how each of them are necessarily building out what they learned." And this is like that we grow, I grow piece and everything we've talked about. And so near the end of the year, God gave me 3 people who were soul care practitioners, because he said some of them need some deeper mentoring. I've called them. Some people are utilizing the certification, some aren't, right? And those who are utilizing, he's like, pay attention and pour into them so that you can begin to refer out, because you don't have the time. That's one thing, to do all of the work you used to do. Remember, I told you you're raising a nation of healers. That means that you have to take this out and pour in. So he gave me 3 names, and I was like, are they going to say yeah? Well, if he gave me 3 names, now they have an opportunity to say no, it's up to them. But each one said, yes, I've needed this, because they want to build out on what they've learned. But there's some key elements of even building a coaching business that they may not understand, or they need support through the process. And then I, in turn, will be able to build out a referral system where I can send people and go, you know what? I'm not open right now, or I'm not doing that work in this season because I'm not doing a lot of soul care right now. It's not on that one-on-one level. It's in a more a global or out there effort, right? Is what I'm doing, since I'm working with so many coaches. But what he showed me was, right, like the Prel commercial. Okay, I'm aging myself, so I don't know how many people remember the Prel commercial. You know, and you tell somebody, and so on and so on and so on, right? It grows the message. It grows the message because you are taking the time to really pour into people. And then it's like the organism. That's how the organism and the ecosystem grows and gets stronger and stronger as you begin to do your part. When each part of the body, the Bible talks about it, does what it is supposed to do, then God is glorified. Right? We're moving. And so I'm watching this as you're talking. I said, that's what I'm doing with these soul care practitioners. Right? We're doing it. It's more short term, 3 to 6 months, but I think it's a 6-month thing. But God is showing me how to move them and help them develop their business and help them to actually earn an income, which is a struggle that many coaches have. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, and it's not about me. This is about people asking, hey, do you have someone you can refer me to, or are you taking personal clients right now, private clients? That's what I had to say. that's what I want to share.
That's so beautiful. But it's so true. Like when you have a bigger mission that God is working on through you, then you don't have to worry about trying to nickel and dime every single thing, right? You have to recognize that there's opportunities for you to sow. Sometimes you can get some, like, get me here. Right now, in this current season in Kingdom Driven Entrepreneurs Development, I'm really focusing on me as CEO, focusing on trying to make sure that we have our affiliate programs in order and that we have our licensing programs in order and all the rest of that stuff, right? It's not because I'm necessarily looking to make money off of everything we do so much. That's important, but the message is so needed. And the environment is so big to get the message to that we can't do it all on our own. Right. And so if there are people asking for things, oh man, you have this would be great if I can implement this for my team, because if I implement this for my team, I can make sure not only have I gone through Kingdom Driven certification, I want them to have a little bit of what I've done through this certification as well, so that they can help me run my business the way that I desire to run it. Right. So having stuff in place just makes it easier for people to spread the message that you have, right? And so I just wanted to say that this is not about not having things in order where you can make money or offer referrals or whatever, but you have to look at it as an opportunity of, hey, these are opportunities for me to sow to the kingdom, because if I'm sowing towards kingdom expansion by imparting what I have into this person or that person, and I'm not asking them to pay me for this, and I'm not, it's going to help the movement as a whole. It's going to help the kingdom expand. And you have to have some of that in your repertoire, because if you don't have seeds in the ground, if you don't have seeds sown, then what does God have to bless? Right?
That's good.
You're only going to have addition in your business, and we need more than addition. We need multiplication. Multiplication comes through sowing. When you sow, there's multiplication. If you're just selling stuff, you'll get addition, basically, right? So anyways, so that's that. Good. Someone has something to say?
Any comments or questions? Coach Billy says it's been great. Always helps those seeds sown. Joy said, planting seeds that someone else may water and another may harvest, but we may never see the entire growth cycle take place. I think that's good too. Because a lot of times we want to reap the reward right from what, and it's like, you might not necessarily reap that harvest. Maybe your harvest is somewhere else, right? Or coming from something else. And I think that's really good to understand. That's why this is a whole, we grow, I grow.
Because quite frankly, sometimes something is a direct result of a seed sown. There's just no way you would know about it. You did it for this person, it went over here, it went over here, this person, it reached here, and this person did this big thing that you received something from so great, but it all started from what you sowed over here, right? You started the ball rolling. So that's how it is with the kingdom. Sometimes we're reaping from the seed that we're sown. We just don't see the connections of how it comes back to us. But in heaven, we'll see that, I believe.
Oh yeah.
I believe God will let us know. Let's see. Another part of this is we look to participate in debt payoff of our brothers and sisters. We look for ways to invest with others and in others. We are ultimately looking to contribute to being a solution on the earth, ready to address entire systems and industries when the Lord leads. So the taking the limits off is like, once we get the basics down, we can get to a point where we're ready for all things in common. Like we're at a point where, hey, I know my brother has some debt, and I want to participate in that. How much is your debt? Oh, okay. You owe this much on a mortgage? Okay. Well, you know what? How about I pay this mortgage down for you? You can pay me back. I'll do it as a loan, right? So you do it as a loan, and in a simple interest or something like that. And so now this person has the benefit of paying down a mortgage much faster than they would have. Like these are the type of things that become possible when we take the limits off. But we'll never get to the point where we can take the limits off and we're looking to affect whole industries and stuff like that, if we stay in the mindset of I got to take care of my own first, and then I'll do over here and I'll do over there. Because what winds up happening is, and we see this quite often in the church, especially with someone that has become, let's say, a multimillionaire or even a billionaire, but they did it on their own. When they think about stewardship, what winds up happening is, oh, I got to steward God's money well. And so they become a gatekeeper to what God wants to do versus a participant in what God wants to do. Right? Oh, I have to make sure I'm a good steward. And so they don't give freely. Like the word says that there's some that give beyond what they should give and they never run out. And then there's some people that withhold more than they should, and they never have enough. I think that's the type of mindset we create when we go into, focusing on, okay, what's in it for me? What can I do? I need to grow this because I'm going to advance the kingdom. No, you're too small to advance the kingdom by yourself. But if you get into this mindset of we grow, I grow, then, you help the ecosystem grow, or you help your brother and sister grow without thinking about yourself. And eventually they'll be able to help you back. You have this project. Okay. Oh, I got some contacts here. I can help you with this. You know what? I've been thinking about the school system, man. Oh man, the school system here sucks. You know what? And then someone else says, oh, you know what? I had this ideal about this charter school that I can do. Oh, really? Okay. Well, what do you need? What do you need to get it done? Oh, I have a construction company. We can help you build a school. Someone else comes along and says, oh man, you need some funding? Like we can do that type of stuff, but it only happens when we recognize that we grow, I grow. It only happens when I'm intentional with giving back to the places where I receive from. It only happens when I recognize that, oh man, these people are on the same page as me. We have the same DNA. I don't have to worry about them taking advantage, right? Those are the pathways that gets us ready for this higher level of taking the limits off and actually participating in debt payoff. As a whole community, we can work on who all has debt. Okay, all right, so here's a game plan. This is how we're going to try to pay it off. That type of stuff happens after we get these basics, right? And that's something. And the reason I'm talking about it is because that's something that God has put on my heart. All things in common. I want to see the Acts first, the Acts church. All things in common. I mean, where someone's like, oh, we have a need. Oh, I got some property. Let me sell the property. Bring the money. Right.
That's good.
It's not because people are trying to take advantage, but they have such a heart for the community and they know what God is doing in the community, that as we all grow, I grow.
Yeah. And that is so key. When you say, every time you say we grow, I grow, I just think about the fact that what you're saying is basically you can't grow by yourself, right? A baby needs a mother's womb to grow. A seed needs soil and water. It can't grow just sitting out, right? It has to have something. It needs nutrients. It needs an ecosystem, right? It needs the organism, right? Of a garden, our garden. So I'm sitting up here now. I got my okra seed out there and I have to water it. It doesn't rain every day. So sometimes I have to give it help by watering the soil because, Oklahoma is crazy weather. Today it could be 10 degrees and tomorrow it might be 100 this time of year, right? But I have to go out there and I have to make sure that, okay, the soil is dry. It's not going to rain for a couple of days. Let me make sure that I water this really well. We grow, I grow. It can't grow without me. And guess what? I need what it provides. I love okra. So I need what it provides. I need the nutrients. I need the taste. I need the flavor of it. I need the diversity of it because it's a very diverse vegetable. And so I think, y'all, I just love gardening. And I think it's important that we understand we can't grow. I can't grow if we don't grow. That's what I just keep saying. It's like, oh wow, really, God, what you saying is really, like I said, we can't be an island. We have to do this thing together.
Yeah. I see Coach Billy has a comment here. Let me read it. It has been difficult. Okay, this has been great. Thank you all. it always helps those seeds sown. And then the next comment says, it has been difficult because I've had performance coaches dog me because I give a lot and I've never worried about the money, etc. But that's it. Like we can't expect these worldly coaches to really understand these kingdom principles, right? That's why we have a community like Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, so that you have a space where you can actually operate in kingdom ways, right? Because not everybody that's part of the kingdom actually represent the kingdom. You know, because people could be a part of the kingdom, like legitimate part of the kingdom, but that don't mean that they're kingdom in their mindset. You know?
Oh yeah.
They've set themselves up as king or queen, and they haven't really yielded to the lordship of Jesus, right? Or they don't have a full understanding of it, right? But you're in a good place for that. So practice it here.
Yeah.
That's why we want to keep this environment healthy, and we want to protect the ecosystem so that we can all practice these things. You don't have to take Phil's word for it. I'm saying a lot of stuff, but if you don't have any experience with it, you don't have any experience with it. So put it to the test. See if it works.
Yes.
You know, give it a shot. Like it just makes sense to me. You know, so I say it, and I'm called the father of movement. So I'm going to say some stuff, but you don't agree with everything that your father says. You don't agree with everything your mother says. But a lot of times, once you get out there and you start living your life, you realize, oh shoot, mama wasn't dumb. Daddy knew what he was talking about. I thought he was kind of, man, look at here.
Yes,
I know about it. You're like, whatever. When I get grown, I'm gonna do it this way. And you start doing it, you be like, this is why mama said do it like this. This is why daddy said that, right? And so, yeah, everybody will learn in time with maturing, right?
Yes, that's how that is it right there, right? Yeah, I love it. I love everything that we talked about today. You guys, your comments were great, wonderful. I love, pathways to all things in common. Take some time to look at yourself and see, like, where am I struggling with? Am I struggling with the organism versus the organization? Am I intentional about receiving from and giving back to the ecosystem? Am I willing in that right there to sit back and learn for a minute before I just go, this is what y'all need, this is what I see, and you haven't even really taken the time to really take a look at what's happening within the organism. When we grow, I grow. You cannot grow by yourself. You need people, places, and things to do that. Take the limits off. I love that, because simply that's saying remove your mask, do what you're supposed to, show up as you, right? Don't be shamed, and know that you play a part in this whole kingdom advancement thing, right? So those were so good. So good, y'all. This was a good conversation, Phil.
Well, I'm glad. Sometimes I got good things to say.
Yes, this was good, you guys. I don't have a topic for next week, but I know Phil gonna give it to me, and we're gonna have a whole conversation. And we are working on things in the background to just continue to expand these talks. Yes, Joy, it'll happen every Friday. We try to be in here every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You will always get an email sent out to you about what we're talking about for the week. And the recordings will always be on Facebook and also on our Facebook business page. And then also you can listen to it. It'll be put on as a bonus for the KDE podcast. So you have two opportunities to listen to it when we're done here. Ebony said already added to her calendar. Good.
And I think last week's I didn't add it to the Facebook page, and I don't think Angie added it. So afterwards, I might have to go and see if I can add it last week's conversation. But it's definitely in the podcast. So even if it's not in video format, you can hear it. So even if we slack, we're trying to get it together. And really, I should say it's me. I need to do a better job. Either a better job of delegating or a better job of doing the work myself.
But isn't it, we're talking about that very thing. When we grow, I grow. And so you're able to see, okay, where I'm weak, my brother or my sister has these strengths. So let's pull all this together in the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
So that we are stronger together. And that's how this thing works, right? Like, I think in a couple of weeks, I told you I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be available because I have a retreat. So I'm thinking about who to bring in so that you have someone in here to assist you in the Zoom room.
Lord,
that's
please,
what this is all about.
Lord, please, because Phil trying to run technology by himself.
See?
I could do a little something, but it'll definitely be a different experience.
Right. And so isn't that how God works this though? I love it that our gifts all come together for the greater good, for the glory of God and the greater good of those that we serve. And that's what this is all about. That's how it's able to flow. Because like Phil said, y'all might have been 10 minutes late with Phil trying to figure everything out. He's like, we're going to get started in a minute. But then at the same time, Phil can come in and we have these conversations and we're piggybacking off of each other because we're developing a stronger organism. Our ecosystem within Team KDE is pretty healthy. And that's why we're able to flow like this, right? So this was good. I could keep going because that's a whole other conversation too. But
you know what? When I saw what do I call her? I call her Twinkle. When I saw Twinkle show up, I had a thought that she's Christina. Yeah, she said, I can help.
Good. I'll reach out to you because it's the 22nd if you're available, Christina. I'm here next week, but the following week I won't be able to be here. So thank you. Yeah, I just love her.
and we also have something I think special planned for that particular Friday.
We do.
We have to reach out to some people first to but we have something a little bit different planned. It won't be our typical conversation, but it'll be a conversation. Don't worry.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to reach out to, we'll start out reaching out kind of to the people who show up in here. So I think I already know who the Holy Spirit has already led me towards talking to somebody. Awesome. So that's what we'll do. All right. I hope this is good for you guys. We're a little 1 minute past the hour. We only want to keep you for about an hour. So we thank you so much for joining us this week. You all are absolutely awesome. We love you. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.